I always got more to say. Okay, I think, yeah, okay.
Oh, well, thank you all for that presentation. It was very informative. Thank you for your perspectives.
Let me grab that mic.
I'll take it.
Okay. And can you pass it to the next person?
Sure. So I'm an artist and a creator as well, and I was curious to know what creative outlets, what publications relating to Afrofuturism you're most excited about right now. What communities outside of this one that we're in right now you've been experiencing, and you know, it is a very communal movement, so I'd like to hear more about that.
So are we?
No, I was like, can you just pass it to Sally? Yeah, because she had the next question. Anybody want to?
Yeah.
No, that's for you for the next question.
He's gonna answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you got a fault. You want to answer? I'm sure you got a fault of references. You want to give us something?
I'm a writer, so I can tell you about how writing works, but if you're looking for artistic stuff, you can go online. DeviantArt is a great place to go look at other artists and look at what they do and how they do it. I write all the time, so for me, what my creative outlets tend to be is the things that tend to piss me off. If a thing makes me angry, I want to learn why it makes me angry. What has it done? How has it done it? Who does this? Who's responsible for this? And then I figure out how to make that not be that way. And so for me creatively, that's usually what fuels my creativity is injustice, social maladaption, things that just don't make any sense. There's so many things in the world that make no sense. So whenever I want to write something, sometimes all I need to do is pick up a newspaper and I'm going, wow, this is just insane. I got to write about this. And I'll write something that counters, challenges, expands my opportunities to interact with people, to see it, to think about it, to question it. And just because, you know, writing is a commitment and reading is a commitment. You know, it's hard to get people to read these days. So one of the things as a writer I have to remember is that if someone reads my work, that means they're giving me their time, their non-renewable resource, this thing they'll never get back. So I try to make it worth their while. That's a challenge. But as a writer, there's literally thousands of places you can put stuff, and there's someone willing to read it and buy it, because everyone's looking for good stuff. So the secret of the outlets is just be good, be dedicated, be focused. Do it every day, or as every day you can. Don't let inspiration keep you from achieving your goal, because if you're an artist, if you're working, then some days, like all of us, who goes to work and always wants to be there? Raise your hand. So there's like 5, 6 of us who get to actually go to work and like it. The rest of us are just going. So just like work, some days you're gonna have to just go and put your nose down and do the work. And those are hard days. Those are days you're like opening a vein, just bleeding on the page. But you know what? You get used to it. Soon you just put a shunt in there, you'll squirt it out on the page just like magic and keep it going.
So this is my favorite question. I can talk about this all day. So like off top, like go to the Mission District and just walk around, look at the murals, look at the graffiti art. There's a lot of beautiful art right here in Oakland, right here in Berkeley, right? Street art is like the best shit ever, particularly right here in the Bay Area, pardon my French,
Really?
babies in the room. And find the artists and talk to them where their influence came from. They'll give you like a lot of game. I'm also fascinated by music videos. I think that music videos are very underrated. If you really consider the fact that music videos were the only medium that black filmmakers could experiment in, and they did it like on the low, right? Because it's like, we don't really care about the music video, we care about you making an advertisement for this artist, right? So they allowed a lot of black filmmakers to experiment without knowing they were experimenting. So like, if you're looking at the work of like Hype Williams, some of Hype Williams' stuff is just off the chain. Khalil Joseph is ridiculous. Arthur Jaffa, if you don't know who he is and aren't digging into Arthur Jaffa, like, give me your black card. Like, just leave it on the floor, I'm gonna just come and get it, right? Arthur Jaffa is a beast. He's like all over the internet. The stuff he's doing right now is amazing. I also just got finished reading Roberta Walker's Aesthetics of Black Cool, which is fascinating. Roberta Walker is Alice Walker's daughter. She did this anthology book on like breaking down what black cool means, which is, was that?
Rebecca Walker.
Rebecca Walker, excuse me, thank you. Amazing book, beautiful read. And then, you know, I'd be remiss not to bring up some video games, but the one video game that stands out as like probably the only black video game is a game, an Afro-Brazilian game called Papa E.O., which is beautiful, beautiful game.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Oh, so the question was, as an Afrofuturist creator, what are some of the outlets, what are some of the communities of creation? Like, there's an Afrofuturist newspaper in Oakland that's just started called Magi. So I was curious to know if you guys knew of any other sort of outlets like that.
Just from my personal perspective, a lot of the inspiration that I get tends to come from working with kids. As they already start to experiment with different movements, combinations, inquiring about different subjects of songs, even rhythms as well. And then when you have that exchange, that spontaneous exchange in a circle, or what's called a roda, sometimes spontaneous movements that someone didn't necessarily train for happens to come out, and then someone will notice that and like, oh, okay, I like that, I'm going to train that now, and then that becomes a part of like that person's repertoire. So for me, I get a lot of inspiration from working with the youth, because they have an infinite well of creativity that I try not to hinder them in that way, and try to put my own, oh, well, it should be done like this instead. Just like let them see where that's going to take them. Yeah, so my outlet would be youth in the circle or the other.
I want to answer really briefly. So in reference to other written literary materials, right? I'm really fascinated about what's happening right now, and the materials that the Black Speculative Arts Movement are constantly writing and creating as we're thinking about this movement. So Rashawn Perry, actually in the back, has dedicated herself to publishing works from all of us who are thinking about these things. So I'm really excited about what we're thinking about right now in the moment, as this is happening, as this renaissance is actually happening right now. Not to say that that is the only work coming out, because that is not true at all, but that's what I'm most excited about. We're Greg Tate in the room, who legendary writer who wrote the introduction to Cosmic Underground, right? Edited by Reynaldo Anderson, and my best friend and mentor, John Jennings, right? So it's happening right now, and we're writing about it, chronicling it, documenting it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm really excited about that. Not only the written materials, but these actual conventions, these spaces, these temporary utopias that we're creating right here in the moment. And I think we have a few more minutes, and we're actually over time, but question. Yeah, exactly. Can we have like about 5 more minutes? Awesome. You had a question. Can we get you yours?
Okay, there's so much.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for y'all being here and in partner with just so much, adding so much to our lives, and mine especially, extending the narrative. My question is around 2 things. One, there was a conversation earlier about blackness, okay? And I have a comrade who says, well, you can identify yourselves as black, but in the construct of society, at some point in time, you will be, that black category will be a category where it may be the one that they're seeking to annihilate. So would you still consider yourself black if they say line all the black people up over here and you're getting ready for the chopping block? We have to reconsider that. Now, here's another thing. The other part of that is when we're talking about Afrofuturism, and as things are progressing and we are aware of that, could Afrofuturism create space for the thought of, okay, that might be what it is, but there's something within technology in our minds that we can do to circumvent that, so that we can carry that narrative as we'd like to carry it, without having to feel like we would become extinct?
Yes, so I can definitely talk about that because
Thank
I
you.
think about some of these things, absolutely. So that I will, and I might need you to reiterate that second part again. So thinking about the first part of that question, right? So the ideas of blackness under attack, and can we, you know, what does that mean, and how do we escape that, navigate that, etc. I love talking about the Black Panther movie. Once again, Ricky might have a different take on it, so I'd love to know your take on this. If I start quoting this, you'll understand where I'm going. Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped ship, knowing that death was better than bondage. Everybody loves that quote, and man, people rally behind it. Here's the thing. I am grateful to the ancestors who did not jump the ship, knowing that they would have to endure bondage, who endured the rape, women and men, who had the master's children with a vision that one day we would be free, because we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, right? Their wildest dreams, we are that. So, in the idea that blackness is under attack, and what does that mean when they say rally up all the black people, because that has been happening as long as we've been here. How do we change the idea of what blackness is? Now, in order to do that and think about that is the next part of your question, where I think about that. So my work deals with visualizing black utopian spaces that can only exist inside of the decolonized black imagination. Now, what do I mean by that? Examples are Tupac's Thug's Mansion and I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto. Outkast's Stankonia. Martin Luther King's Mountaintop, where he said, I may not get there with you, but I've seen it. I've been to the mountaintop. What do these spaces look like? Earth, Wind, and Fire or Johnny Mathis's The 12th of Never. When is the 12th of Never? Prince's Erotic City, right? What do these spaces look like? We always create our beyond blackness. We always create our escape. But once we visualize it, it becomes colonized. Wakanda's not really ours. It was created by two second-generation Jewish immigrants, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, right? But we've colonized Wakanda as black people, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. We can do that if we choose to, but we have our own mythologies, and I think that the way of our escape has been through our decolonized black imagination. We created it in our literature, we created it in our music, but when we make it visual, when we make it, quote, I'll do this and saying real, then it becomes colonized. So in that, I argue that what is real? What is inside my mind, inside the decolonized imagination, may be even more real than police brutality in a particular way, not to negate that, but in a particular way. So in order, navigating those ideas of blackness and maybe those ways of escape, we've always done that, right? When they start rallying all the black people and killing black people, policing black people, they've always done that. But I think we in particular ways, started to create our ways of escape through our imagination. The question becomes, how do we actualize that and keep it from being colonized? And I don't have that answer, I'm sorry.
I say let them colonize it. If I make it and they try to take it, still mine. I made it. You can do whatever you want with it. One of the reasons I write so many stories is because I write them and I send them out to the universe. I seed the future with my ideas. I don't care if you take over them. Enjoy them, use them, let them inspire you. They're still mine. I made them. I made them in contrast to and in violation of how you think I should think. So, by all means, take my ideas, run with them, do whatever you think you can. Because ultimately, it'll all belong to me anyway. And every time you do that, I only grow stronger. You can't stop me that way. Colonize my ideas, you basically said my idea was good. You tried to lay claim to it. that means it really was a good idea. Yeah, you owe me, and you always will.
I echo a lot of what they're saying. I think it's almost like an existential question for any black person, particularly black artists. As soon as you start speaking, the first thing that came to mind was you should probably read Derek Bell's Space Traders. Right? Because this is Derek Bell's Space Traders. And then read Gospel Choir, which was also by Derek Bell. And it's really about a bunch of aliens come down to Earth and say, to America, give us all your black people, and we'll give you like the latest technology and gold and resources and everything. So like, what would America do if some aliens came down here and was like, give me all of your black people, right? And he really took it serious. It's like a fascinating short story. But then he wrote another story in Gospel Choir, I believe, that explains what happened afterwards, right? And so, it's what you're asking is almost like a journey that each of us have to go through. And that's why I'm kind of more interested in giving you resources than answering the question. But I do echo a lot of what they're saying. It's almost like what Talib Kweli is called the beautiful struggle, right? Like, we're gonna make beautiful shit, but then we gotta deal with the struggle of having produced something and then having that thing being colonized, taken, misappropriated, what have you. But then, this is a fascinating question that I ask my students. It's like, well, why do you think if you look at all of these things that we've contributed to American society, like all of this brilliant culture that we created, why do you think we created it, right? Like, is it because we just were born brilliant? Like, I don't really believe that. What I believe is that we have dealt with so much institutionalized oppression. Like, Capoeira is beautiful and it's born out of institutionalized oppression. It's like when you push people to the brink, the thing that is brilliant about black people, in my perspective, is that we were allowed to be pushed to the brink and then we created brilliance out of it. So then you have to ask the question, would you rather give up all this brilliance that we created for a life of peace and no institutionalized oppression? Would you give up all jazz, hip hop, blues, capoeira, Dr. King, Martin, Malcolm X, give up all of that for a life of peace? Or would you be kind of content with where we are and how far we've come? It's a really fucked up question to answer, man. It's really deep. Like, when you answer that, it's like when you ask that question, it's just kind of like, oh.
Well, no, I don't have the answer, and I'm sorry, I don't want to, take up all the space here. But this is stuff that the youth, like our engagement in community, people ask about. So one side is like, okay, you can say you're black, and then when they get ready to round us up, then what about the rest of us? People like, okay, you have overcome, you see things from that perspective, but we're not there yet. And do you want to put us at risk by continuing to say we're black and perpetuating that at the same time? So it's not like I really wanted the answer, but just like, how do we where does our freedom of creating, when it becomes something that may put the whole at risk? And I'm not saying that's the case. Or do we, and also the point that you said about struggle, like the only way that we create beautiful things is out of struggle. I think we can also create beautiful things out of being happy as well. So just, if you can help me out with that.
I think that a lot comes out of beauty and a lot comes out of struggle. I think that's the thing that's fascinating about black people. It's like, you could have a tragic occurrence happen and then the next day we all in church. You know what I mean? You could have something like, my man on the lake and what happened to him, which was tragic, and immediately after that you saw nothing but love. Like, everybody came out, started barbecuing, brothers on there getting their hair cut. Like, that is how we approach ugliness. We use love to approach ugliness. That is, to me, the one thing that is absolutely special about black people is how we deal with struggle. You know what I mean? And the love piece and the happiness piece that's a part of it. It's like, you know, you ain't gonna ruin my day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna find a way to be happy. I'm gonna put these headphones on and I'm gonna sing as loud as possible on the bar, and it's gonna annoy you, but all the black people on the bar know why I'm doing it. Right? You know what I mean? That's us. Like,
let's see. Just for me, it would just be trying to acknowledge those challenges and those struggles and using it to your benefit any way you can. So earlier when we did our performance, it was saying that, you know, even though capoeira is something that came from the African diaspora and the slaves from Africa being enslaved in Brazil, and then now you have this form of resistance that's practiced all across the world. And even though it came from that, there's, for example, in the Bay Area, you know, I can count on, there's 5 or 6 actual black people who run their own schools that do capoeira. Not saying like, you know, you're just a high-level student that subs a class, like you run your own academy, you run your own school. There's only like 5 or 6 people that are black. In ratio to how many people who are non-black that actually run their own schools, and actually the ratio of or percentage of non-black students. Even smaller than that is black women. There's only one, you know, that I can think of. But knowing that struggle, knowing that thing that made me upset, that pissed me off, so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get those 5, 6 black people together, and then we're going to have our own celebration. So for example, like tomorrow, at Lake Mary, we're going to do a Juneteenth celebration. And this is the only type of celebration like this, not where it's just like maybe one capoeira school that has a lot of black students decided to do this. This is a capoeira celebration where if I have this particular style of capoeira, this particular lineage, there's various lineages of capoeira, 3 main lineages without going too deep into it. But all of the people who are running this celebration are black. All these people who are running this celebration represent different lineages, and all these people who are running the celebration look like the ancestors. As the further you go back, the darker the complexion, the more melanin you see in the capoeira practitioners. And even the slaves, and even further back, which I try to do as much as possible, before slavery, the kings, queens, scholars, and things like that from different parts of Africa. So yeah, there's only a few of us, you know, teaching capoeira, so then those few are gonna get together, and then we're gonna have the celebration where everyone else who is not necessarily of African descent immediately or associated with being black or African, but they come, contribute, and respect the history of what they enjoy doing and where it came from. So that's how I take something that frustrated me and then flip it to make it something positive. So yeah, this is my thing, and everyone is welcome to come and participate and eat and be merry, but don't forget where this comes from. Don't forget the people who suffered, and don't forget their sacrifice, so that now I can do something that my ancestors were not allowed to do before me.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm sorry we are 15 minutes over time.